Hey everyone, this week it's bird photography and we're checking out the Neewer Gimbal Tripod Head. So I've come out today to RSPB Oldmore. It's my local wetlands area. I'm going to capture some bird photography. I've got the Nikon D500 with me and the Sigma 150 to 600mm lens. But what I really want to talk about today is this gimbal tripod head that Neewer have sent me. So I'm going to be completely upfront, they have sent me this, I am allowed to keep it, but I'm not getting any other kind of payment for this. So all my opinions are my own. They've not specified that I have to say anything in particular, and I will be giving a completely unbiased review. So we're going to head on, get into the huts, try this out and see what shots we can get. So if you don't already know, a gimbal head replaces the normal head on your tripod. So you might have a ball head on there, you just unscrew that, then you can pop this construction on there. And this particular one by Neewer is a 360-degree panning swivel head. It's got the cradle arm on here, and this is where you mount your big lens. And this gives you much more flexibility for panning and tracking birds, and it'll really take the weight of a big lens. So on first thoughts, this does seem really well constructed. It feels almost like cast iron, but it's actually an aluminium alloy, so even though it is fairly heavy, it's not as heavy as it obviously could be, but it is strong, and you want that because lenses can be heavy. I brought with me the Sigma 150 to 600mm. It's very heavy, but this thing can take up to around about 13.5 kilograms, so it's easily going to manage that lens. And you've got a couple of knobs on here. This one will just release the action to swivel it this way, and this one will release the arm here so this can pan up and down. This is dampened, so it won't immediately fall straight back down. It's got a little bit of give there, and you can also adjust that by tightening or loosening this knob here on the left. So I've got the head mounted on my three-legged thing Winston tripod. It is a big sturdy head, so you want to mount it on an equally sturdy tripod. It's not going to work very well on a flimsy tripod. So you can adjust this front plate here, or the bottom plate rather. You want to make sure that this is going to balance when you've got it in the gimbal. So you see that's loose there, but it is balanced. Now with a zoom lens, which extends like the Sigma 150 to 600 does, that does cause an issue where it tips at the front because it gets heavier, but that's not the fault of the head. There's not really much you can do about that. Obviously it'll work much better with a telephoto or a zoom that doesn't extend. I've mounted the plate on the bottom of my tripod foot, so it's quite far forward, and that's because I know it is quite front heavy, and the further forward you have that plate mounted, the more it's going to support the weight at the front there. Now there isn't much information in the instruction booklet about how high you should have this mounted, and I'm not an expert on gimbal heads, but I think that having the pivot point in line with the lens body itself is probably a good idea. So that's where I've got that set up, and you can see that now I can move this completely freely. I can move it up and down, and that's really good if I'm tracking birds. It gives me a lot of movement and a lot of support. And like I said, it does balance quite nicely. Feels nice and smooth, fluid. Like I said, it is dampened on this pivot point here. And I've heard some people say that they've needed to re-lubricate or modify the gimbal head slightly to put new bearings in there and things. But all I can say is I've got this straight out of the box from new. It's absolutely fine and it seems to work perfectly. So I'm really happy with that so far. The one problem with a gimbal head is that you can't really correct if it's not on a level. So if your feet are not on a really flat surface and you're slightly off centre, then there's no real way to correct for that with the head itself. You can just loosen your tripod collar and then rotate the camera slightly. And I do use that if I want to switch from portrait to landscape as well. But that's not a perfect solution, and that is something to bear in mind. I have also found with this head that one slight flaw with it is that when you've got the knob here loose so that you can rotate it 360 degrees, you do have a little bit of play left and right. It's not quite as tight as it could be. There is a little hole at the top here for an Allen key, so I might be able to tighten that. But at the moment there is a little bit of give. When you tighten that, there's no give at all. But at this price point, you kind of expect it's not going to be 100% perfect. But it is something just to bear in mind. Okay, heading home now. Didn't find anything especially exciting today. Maybe the pectoral sandpiper and also maybe a buzzard, not quite sure. But they were both quite far away, so didn't really get very good shots of those. If there were any good shots, you'll have seen them already throughout the video. And I'm going to head home now and talk a little bit more about the gimbal, so I'll see you back there. So I've got to say I was fairly impressed by the Neewer Gimbal Tripod Head. For an accessory that's priced well within the budget range, it really is well constructed and really does the job. You can pick this up for just over £80 here in the UK, and given the exchange rate at the moment, probably a similar price in dollars. And that's really good when you compare it to premium gimbal heads, which can cost well over £500. It feels nice and solid. That's definitely not going to buckle or break, and it can take quite a lot of weight. I think I said about 13.5 kilograms earlier. It's actually 13.6 kilograms, so I wasn't far off. All the knobs and dials work really well. It's got a good fluid action, like I said. It is slightly dampened up here, which is nice. And I had no problems with it straight out of the box, so that's all really good. The only one tiny flaw I could find with it is this pivot point here. When this dial is loose, you've just got a tiny little bit of movement left and right, so just here, kind of moving this way and that way, but you know, that's very, very minor. It might, in some circumstances, cause your level to be just slightly off, but that's easily corrected in Lightroom or whatever processing software you're using. So really that's not a problem at all for me, and given the price difference, I think it's an absolute bargain of a product. Neewer have said they're going to give me an up to 50% off discount code. At the time of recording I don't have that yet, but as soon as I do I'll put it down below in the comments section, so check that out. It's valid for a month and you can get some money off this and grab even more of a bargain. I've just got one more image to show you. It was of a duck. Nothing particularly exciting about the duck itself, but it did have a really nice reflection, so I'll stick that one up on screen. So that's it for another video. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Really do appreciate it. If you have liked it, just give me a thumbs up down below. All the other usual stuff. If you're not yet subscribed and you'd like to do so, click down there on the big red button or over here on my face. That way you'll keep up to date with everything I'm doing each and every week. And there's a new video every Sunday morning, 10 AM UK time. I'm hoping I might be able to get out next week for some woodland photography if the weather's right. If not, it might be some more images from my recent California trip. Until then, cheers everyone, and bye for now.